Hello, and welcome to this general election debate for Congressional District 7. This debate is sponsored by Clean Elections, the state's nonpartisan voter education agency. My name is Nohelani Graff, and I'm going to be moderating today's debate. Thanks to a partnership with the Clean Elections Commission, the Arizona Media Association, and Bitfire Studios, we're working to make sure all 2024 debates are the most accessible in Arizona history. That means this conversation will air on a long list of local TV stations, radio stations, and digital platforms, including support from local newspapers. Our format is going to be a little different today. We're hosting a 30-minute one-on-one discussion since only one candidate has agreed to participate. Democratic incumbent Raul Grijalva has not accepted our invitation. So instead, we are welcoming Republican challenger Daniel Butierez, who we will introduce in just a moment. Transparency, we want to let you know, though, is critical here, and that's why this conversation has been designed with input from a broad group of journalists in Arizona representing urban and rural communities. We also want to let you know that the candidate has not been given advanced access to any of the questions. With that, let's introduce the Republican congressional candidate, Daniel Butierez. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Butierez, you do have 2 minutes for an opening statement. The floor is yours.
All right. I'm Daniel Francis Butierez, and I'm running for CD7 in the District of Arizona. I'm not a politician. I'm a painting contractor. I've spent my whole life planning to be a painting contractor and having a ranch, and I completed those 2 tasks, and I just don't like the way our community is going. I don't like the homeless crisis that's plaguing our cities, and I decided to step up and do something. And presently, right now, under Article 1, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, 800,000 citizens are entitled to representation in Congress, and since February, we have had no representation in Congress. So I've decided to step up and do something to help with securing our border, addressing the homeless crisis, and dealing with the drugs that are plaguing our city. We presently have 900 homeless camps throughout the city of Tucson. The homeless walking around at night, it makes people not even want to drive at night because we're afraid we're going to hit one of them as they just step out into the streets. Grijalva himself has been in politics for 50 years. He's been a congressional candidate for 22 years. He's been a congressional leader for 22 years. And during that time, it seems the problems we have continued to get worse and worse. Education we're 44th in the nation, and it just doesn't seem to be getting any better. So I've stepped up to take on this project and try and make our community better.
So you are, as you mentioned, taking on one of the most well-known politicians in southern Arizona with that 20-year congressional career. So what do you see as being your path to victory? You have 2 minutes.
I was born here in Arizona. I'm a native to Tucson, third-generation Arizonan. My name's not very popular. Daniel Butierez is not a common name, but it is it's kind of name no one's going to forget because my grandfather was Filimano Gutierrez and my grandmother was Ramona Calderon. My great-grandfather came from Mexico in the 1800s, so my family's been here a long, long time. And though the Butierrez family is a very new and smaller family, my family is very large across southern Arizona. And with that being said, I have a lot of family, a lot of friends, a lot of people that would have tended to vote for a Democrat or Grijalva that this year they won't be voting for Grijalva. They'll be voting for their family member, someone they've known, that they've grown up with, they understand, and they know that when I say I'm going to address the issues that are plaguing our community, I'm truly going to address the issues that are plaguing our community because I love my state. I have always loved my state. And I care about the people in my state. As a man that rescues animals, I care about animals. I have a big heart for things that need help. So I've decided to step up and take care of those things.
So let's dive into some of those issues. Hundreds of miles of your district do, of course, border Mexico, making it a leading issue for voters, particularly in your area. The solution for immigration reform, of course, would have to come from the House and be passed and then passed on to the president for a signature. So how would you define securing the border?
Well, first off, I've spent a lot of time over on the border, and the section in Tucson, which is Sasebe, runs in Arivaca and Sasebe, that is law. They must, all asylum seekers must enter through a legal port of entry. Nobody in Tucson is entering an illegal port of entry. About 14 miles down the wall, they're coming in at the end. The Border Patrol are driving back and forth, picking them up, driving them to the border control station where they process them. Then they take them to 3 points, they load them on a bus, which then they drive them to migrant camps, and we have several large migrant camps in Tucson. It's costing the Pima County $1.4 million a week to house, feed, and clothe these individuals. I had a meeting with the Board of Supervisors last week. I let her know that I didn't think it was right that we taxpayers are funding this. Because what's happening is by us funding them and taking care of them and giving them all this stuff, we're incentivizing more to come illegally across the border to our community, which is costing taxpayers more and more money. So I would say we need to finish the wall, and we need to actually hold people accountable that come in the wrong way, send them back, tell them, you need to go to a port of entry as our law requires, and have them enter only at a port of entry. That way our officers aren't distracted allowing drugs to pour across our border.
So if you're saying to continue the wall and finish the wall barrier, what do you see as being the benefit? Is it to slow people down, to buy Border Patrol more time to catch up? Is it to funnel migrants to those legal ports?
To funnel them to the legal ports. And just so you understand, at Sasebe, we have a rancher, and he's a very famous rancher. I mean, he's become very famous. Jim Chilton. He's been on the media. I'm sure you all might have talked to him, but he's been on Fox News, NBC, and he showed the videos because he has trail cams on his ranch, and he records the drug runners coming across his ranch. They come with the carpet shoes so that they can't be tracked. They come across his ranch, and the backpacks that are on them while they're on the camera get left at my dad's property, which is on the other side of Mr. Chilton's ranch, where they've taken the drugs and then take off. The Border Patrol station in the crossing there in Arivaca has no Border Patrol agents on it because they're too busy working the wall, driving everyone back and forth. Most of the drugs entering the country are not going through a port of entry like everyone wants you to know or wants you to believe. They're actually coming right across the border where there is nothing to stop them.
So when it comes to spending then, after what you see is finishing the wall, then where do you see the next amount of money going? Is it to support Border Patrol and hire more agents? Is it asylum cases, more judges to clear the asylum cases? Where does the money need to go?
Well, I believe if we do all this and we stop inviting them here, for an example, when my grandparents came here, my great-grandfather, they worked cotton fields. And my grandfather was born in Salem, Arizona in 1900. He worked the cotton fields. My dad and his brothers worked cotton fields till they went and worked in the mines, and then they had families, and our families grew, and now my cousins and I, we become a different line. That's the American dream. What they're doing now, they're coming in and at taxpayers' expense, they're getting everything and they're not earning anything. And that's not the way we were designed. So I believe if we stop doing all that, there'll be a whole lot of asylum seekers that decide they're not going to come here because they're not giving any free stuff to them. Most of the asylum seekers that come here are not true asylum seekers.
Do you have a plan or any policies that you would advocate for to clear the asylum backlog, though, for those who are already in the system to catch us up?
We would have to hire some more judges to get those through quicker. We'd start processing them, sending the ones that aren't asylum seeker back quicker. The faster that we started doing this, the faster that people will stop coming here and backlogging us. I'm all for immigration. As a matter of fact, I sponsored a friend of mine from Mexico about 16 years ago. But because of all the criminal cases that are before the courts, all those trying to come over here legally have been put on the back burner. So they've actually slowed down the migration system, or the immigrant system.
I want to pivot topics for a moment here. You've talked a lot about ranchers and your family, also farmland. Yuma County is the state's largest sector for agriculture. Farms there, as well as farms and ranches in Pima County as well, they rely on water from the Colorado River. But they have already seen their shares from the river cut. What do you support as far as preserving water supplies? Is it regulations to protect rural water supplies, more investments in water conservation infrastructure like rainwater harvesting? What do you support?
Yeah, well, I definitely support regulations, not necessarily on the farmers that are there or the people that are here, but we have other countries coming here and using up our water supply. Let me give you, in Marana, I have 2 wells in Marana. In Marana, we have a lot of water underground. Tucson, the city has come out and they've set up 3 wells, big tanks, and they're pumping out the water to Tucson. I think we need to have regulations on areas that come out, because like anything, if it's not your area and you haven't come from there, then you need to pay something for it and to regulate it. Someone should be paying someone something to stop it from being taken so much and abused. Then we have other countries that are here growing crops. And did you know that right now, for the first time in our country's history, we are actually importing food? We've always been exporters of food. Other countries are coming in here, they're farming the food, they're using our water to farm the food, and then they're taking their food to sell it elsewhere, which is costing us loss in our farming area, and they're closing down farms. But anyways, I think we should regulate the water, and countries that don't belong here taking our water shouldn't be taking our water. We need it for us.
And so on a federal level is where we would implement regulations for anyone who wants a share of the water on land that they purchase.
Right.
Also in your district, West Maricopa County, they've seen huge growth out there. We have industries expanding out there. There are new housing developments out there. All of that requires more water, more energy to operate and to build. So what kind of legislation specifically, what investments would you support to ensure energy sustainability for areas like that?
Well, I've spoken to the people out in Maricopa, and they want the housing to stop because they want their farming and their ranching to continue. And as a community, we need our ranches and our farms to continue on. We need their produce, we need their food supplies, and again, that's their lifestyle. And that's what they want, and I've been to meetings with them, and the majority don't want housing there. So I think we should not build houses there. We should find another place to build houses, not in the farmlands. Yeah.
When it comes to housing, though, that does speak to homelessness, the availability because of the cost of housing now. So first, the 2023 Turning Point time count, it did show a 60% increase in homelessness over 5 years just in Pima County. What solutions would you advocate for to get more people into permanent housing if you also want to restrict where that housing goes?
Yeah. Well, just so you know, I was once homeless. I went through that lifestyle, and I can tell you 90% of the homeless out there don't want a home. They don't want help. So I've designed a program that will force those people into getting help and getting on their feet. For example, you can't get someone, if you get someone off of the drugs, which you can do, you can put them in a 30-day place, get them off the drugs, and then when you release them, they return back to using the drugs. You've got to give them self-esteem. You've got to build their confidence and give them a reason to live. So in order to do that, we need to put them in a program, and it needs to be a mandatory program. And I've talked to a lot of mothers. As a matter of fact, I have a mother that really wanted to put handcuffs on me and lock me away till I was better for my own good. So there's a lot of mothers out there that want that. And I believe I'm the answer to a lot of mothers. We have, every one of them there's at one point or another, they're breaking the law, they're possessing drugs, they're shoplifting, they're doing things that they could be arrested for. We need to put them in jail. Have a judge say, hey, I got a choice for you, like they used to do many years ago when you either go to jail or you go into the Army. You either go to jail or you go into a program. We put them in a program, it's a 30-day detox, and then we put them to work. We help them get a job, get on their feet. Once they start earning a paycheck, they start building their self-esteem. And we keep them in the program till they're ready to get out. As long as they're working and they're complying with the rules of the program, we allow them to stay and work through this. Once they're ready, they go out and they can get a place. Getting a place is another thing. I paint apartment complexes. I watched as California companies came in here and they bought apartments. They increased, and we did them. We upgraded the apartments, and they went from $900 a month to $1,500 a month. And it's hurt a lot of people because Tucson doesn't have that kind of an income. We don't make that kind of an income. Where California, they have high inflation and high wages. But we didn't have high inflation and we didn't have high wages. Most people can't afford that $1,500 a month. They really came in and hurt us. A lot of them have now left because they found it was too hard to keep people in them. So
I'm going to come back around to what you were saying about the rehabs, but since we're still on housing for this one, and you mentioned that with rent prices and increases, they're slowly trending down, but in Tucson alone, it is still higher than the national average. Some have suggested a rent cap. Others want to see developers include a set number of units that are an affordable price in their new projects. Would you support either of those?
I agree with they should have units at a set price that's down to someone can afford to pay. They can still do the same kind of background checks on them and make sure that there's someone they want in the community, but they should be a cheaper one. And those companies that I spoke to that came from California, they actually did have 6 or 7 in each complex that were low-income housing, because those ones we didn't do the fancy upgrades. We just painted them one color and made sure everything worked in it. So.
Your opponent, Mr. Grijalva, wants to see the rental assistance program made permanent. Do you agree with that?
That's a real tough one because each case is different, and I think we have too many federal programs that are being taken advantage of. I'll give you an example. We have methadone clinics where the government is supporting people getting methadone. I see that as a billion-dollar industry. But people that are going to get the methadone, because it's tax-funded and it's under access and it's considered medical treatment, we also pay for their cab rides over there. Even though the buses are free in Tucson, people still call a cab, and because it's medical transport, so we taxpayers pay for that. And there's a lot of abuse in these programs that our government uses that we need to regulate. I'm okay with helping people out, and if we got some regulation that's actually going to watch over these programs and then actually hold them accountable when you catch people that are abusing the program, so they don't ever hold anybody accountable anymore. So they do it.
Well, on that note of methadone, there is a bill right now that would allow methadone to be prescribed to a pharmacy to allow for at-home doses, because one of the barriers is often that people can't get there for the daily dose. It doesn't leave room for transportation or family emergencies. Would you support that, for being able to get it from a pharmacy and have home doses, and then maybe internally then it would cut down on the transportation portion of it?
Well, as far as the methadone goes, we need to cut way down on the methadone. It is an abused program. And I'm speaking as someone, my sister's on methadone. My brother-in-law's been on it for 30 years. Methadone's more addictive than the heroin. It's more damaging to the body than the heroin. So I don't even understand why they put people on it when it's more harmful to the body, except that Big Pharma is getting rich off of selling methadone, which we taxpayers pay for. So I actually think we need to get rid of the methadone altogether. They have Suboxone, which I still think they need to get rid of that, but we need to set it up where they use it for what it's intended for. The Suboxone's it's healthier for you. And my son, Robert, had to use that to get off, and he cut it down till he doesn't use it anymore, and he's off. And that's the purpose of it. It's not to continue a different drug that us taxpayers pay for forever. And that's what we've been doing.
And circling it back to what you were saying before with your proposal for mandatory rehab in 30 days, where do you suggest the funding for that comes from? If it's mandatory, where do those dollars come from?
We have 150 treatment facilities across Arizona. They have a 58% success rate, which isn't good enough. I'll give you an example of those. My sons have both gone into those when they were homeless. They decided to go in. Taxpayers pay thousands of dollars for one of the homeless to walk into one of those programs. The next day they walk out, and taxpayers fund this. And all day long, this is happening. They go in, they get some sleep, they get something to eat, and then they leave to go get their drugs. They don't work. They're like a motel for the night. And we need to, that money in some of those situations could be allocated over towards, and I already have the place picked up, the Marana prison. It's been emptied out. It is perfect for the program. It's already there. We don't need taxpayer money to build this place. It's already there, and it's perfect for what we need.
Well, you do have a unique perspective as well. You've been very open about serving time yourself, and so you've seen inside prison walls. What changes would you say also need to be made to the prison system to address addiction, recovery, mental health, and really setting people up to reform and re-enter society after their time is served?
Yeah, that's a great one, because I have some plans for that. In the 80s, Arizona's the 5 C's. It's cattle, copper, cotton, citrus, and climate. Okay, we used to have mines here. Everybody was a mine. Were miners. People could raise their families. They had a good living. They had good benefits. They had everything they needed. They retired with a good pension. They were all unions, and copper. The value of copper dropped, so they started shutting down the mines. So then the feds stepped in, and they started a social program to help people go to work. They started building prisons all over Arizona. So now, instead of men getting out of high school, going to work at the mines, getting married, raising a family, they were getting out of high school and they had looking for jobs, not finding jobs, getting depressed, getting wrapped up in drugs. It became this vicious circle that caused people to wind up going to prison. We became the prison capital of the world. I mean, Arizona has per population more prisons than any other state in the union. It's because the mines got shut down, so we started building prisons to put people to work.
So even though Arizona has started to shift away from coal, you believe that's a mistake and we should go back to mining?
I think we should go back to mining copper. Well, someone's got to mine the copper. They want to build electric cars. They want to build the batteries. Of course, I don't know what they're going to do with the batteries when they go bad, because there's nowhere to store them. But we're going to have to mine these things, and we should go back to that so that we have a place for people to build their lives in a career rather than spend their lives in a prison cell.
And of course, the pushback always with mining is protecting tribal land and the environment, and also past connections to cancer. So how do you grow mining and balance the benefit to the state's economy while protecting the health of the people?
Well, I can tell you Salmon Well was a very safe environment. They recycled all their water. Before they shut it down, it was probably the #1 mine in Arizona. Had tremendous regulation. they had engineers underground all the time because there's a water, underground water that they had to make sure they didn't tap in because it would kill all the men under the mine. So they had engineers involved. They recycled all the water. They made sure that no waste and contamination or poison was getting out into the communities. And that's what needs to be done when you open up mines. There needs to be regulations. Of course, that was an underground mine, so it didn't have the destruction that open pit mines have. Open pit mines tend to destroy the environment more. Except over in Marana, they mine for the cement, and that you can't even tell where they've been. They just go through and mine it all and then put everything back to where
So
it
with
was.
Updated regulations and oversight, you would support?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Mr. Butierez, our time is winding down, and so you do now have time, 1 minute for a closing statement. The camera is yours again.
I invite all of you to read look at my webpage, read my story. You'll be amazed by my story. It's Daniel Butierez for Congress, the number 4.com. Read my story, see what I want to do, what I want to address. I'm not a politician. I'm a blue-collar working man just like all of you. And like all of you, I'm fed up with the politicians, the lies from the politicians, them telling us they're going to do something over and over, and nothing ever gets done. I'm telling you right now, I'm running as a statesman. I'm not going to represent just one party or the other. I'm running to represent everybody within my district, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. Vote for Daniel Butierez. Thank you.
We appreciate your time today, and that is all of the time that we have for this one-on-one conversation with Daniel Butierez, Republican candidate for Congressional District 7. As a reminder, Arizona's general election is on Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting starts Wednesday, October 9th. You can head to azmedia.org to see a list of the upcoming debates and where you will find them on TV, radio, and digital platforms provided by our local media partners. For the full debate schedule and to even submit questions for future debates, head to azcleanelections.gov. On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Reister and Bitfire Studios, we thank you for joining us.